Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the House Commerce Committee. I'm Kevin Vaughn. I'll be your host for the day. I think we're just about all in our places with bright, shiny faces. So with that, we will begin our meeting. Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Representatives Alexander, Boyd, Calfee, Camper, Faison, Haston, Hazelwood, Hodges, Holsclaw, Johnson, Lynn, Manis, Moon, Powell, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And before we get started today, do we have any personal orders from any of the members? Any personal orders? Well, I got a personal order. I'm going to give a shout out and a big hello to one of my constituents, and as famed ESPN personality Stephen A. Smith says, my dear friend, Molly Walker's in the back, so all the way from Collierville, so we'd like to say hello to her today. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. All right, so we're going to get right into today's calendar right off the bat. We have House Joint Resolution 190. I believe Representative Doggett, Chairman Doggett is here to speak on that.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, sir.
And thank you, committee. Mr. Chairman, it is a great honor to come before your committee this morning to bring this appointment to the Tennessee Public Utility Commission on behalf of our great speaker. He is requesting that we move forward with naming Dr. Kenneth Hill to the Tennessee Public Utilities Commission for another 6-year term. Long list of things and that he has been a part of over his tenure as a member of this commission. But I seek passage if it be the will of this committee.
All righty. Thank you. And I believe Dr. Hill is here today. It's good to see you. We have anyone who has any questions for Dr. Hill? He's here to answer any questions. If you'd like to come and say hello, give us a few words of wisdom today, sir. And with that, we will go out of session to hear a few words from Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Very kind of you. I had not anticipated the opportunity to speak, but I've been serving on the Tennessee Public Utility Commission, usually known as the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. It was before the change, since 2009. And I have enjoyed my tenure, and I'm looking forward to another term that I might be able to serve the people of Tennessee and enjoy that service. So that's what I'd like to do, and I appreciate your assistance in that endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And any questions for Dr. Hill? Seeing none, Dr. Hill, we're glad you're here. We're thankful that you took time out of your schedule to come say hello to us today. And with that, we're going to go back in session. We've got a motion on the floor. The bill is in the proper posture. We're going to call the question now. All those in favor of Dr. Hill's appointment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Congratulations, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, members.
This appointment will move on to calendar and rules. Now we're going to hear from Representative Mark Hall.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And colleagues, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, today I seek the endorsement and the approval of Robin Morrison to the Tennessee Public Utilities Commission. She is in the audience today if you would like her to say a few words. If not, I seek the approval.
All righty. Thank you, sir. I think we're going to go out of session, at least give her the chance to say hello. She's been through security and everything. We need to let her talk. We're out of session.
All right. As stated, I'm Robin Morrison, and I currently serve as a commissioner of the Tennessee Public Utility Commission. I'm from Chattanooga, and my background is banking. I was originally appointed by Speaker Beth Harwell, and I'm honored that Lieutenant Governor McNally has reappointed me to second term. I'd like to thank Representative Hall for sponsoring the resolution. TPUC Executive Director Earl Taylor's here today. He does a great job leading a wonderful group of people, and I've enjoyed working with them these past few years. I hope I get the opportunity to continue being part of the Utility Commission and represent the citizens of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Do we have any questions of Ms. Morrison? Seeing none, we're going to go back into session. Thank you for being here, ma'am. We've got a motion on this appointment. All those in favor of confirming Ms. Morrison to the TPUC, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. We're moving on to calendar rules of this appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Representative. Next on our calendar is House Bill 408. Chairman Kiesling is going to spend a little time with us today. Welcome, Chairman.
Well, thank you for that welcome. It's great to be here with you. An honor. Does
We
that
do-
mean I can move forward with
Yes, sir.
my,
You are
okay?
you
Sure,
are in the
but-
proper posture. We're all ears at this point.
All right. Thank you, sir. House Bill 408 is actually has local application over our way, and Chairman Powers, he's a neighbor to us over there. We have Citizens Gas Utility District. It serves both Scott and Morgan counties. Morgan, it actually began in their bylaws. It had as a 5-member board, 3 of which serve from Scott and 2 from Morgan. But with the growth of Morgan recently, and with an addition of some customers in Fentress County, in a more remote section there, what they've decided to, in all fairness, to become one of the 5, become an at-large. And so it'll be 2 from Scott, 2 from Morgan. That'll take effect in their 2025 election. So that gives you, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions. But anyway, they brought this to us and would like for us to address it, and be glad to entertain any questions, Mr. Chairman. Amen.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from our members? Any questions from our members? Seeing none, we will call the question. All those in favor of approving House Bill 408 for Chairman Kiesling, sending it on to calendar and rules, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? None. You're done with us, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Good morning, Representative Hurt.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
We're gonna consider House Bill 0716 next on the calendar. Sir, you are properly before us with a motion and a second. Please tell us what we're listening to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there's an amendment today.
Would that be House, or would that be Amendment 5425?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right, we need amendment number 1. We need to get that before us. We've got a motion and a second on House Bill Amendment 1. I believe that's Chairman Faison's amendment.
Move passage of the amendment and defer to the sponsor to further explanation. The sponsor of the bill.
Excuse me, I have a question from Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the drafting code on this amendment?
5425.
Okay, thank you. And the sponsor is going to explain the amendment?
It appears that way to me, ma'am. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment basically deletes the language of "or any subsequent federal census." So basically, it locks it into the 2010 census based on the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act is what the amendment does.
All righty, that is the amendment. Do we have any questions regarding amendment number one? Question's been called. All those in favor of amendment number one, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none. The amendment is attached. Representative Hurt, you want to speak to us about House Bill 716 as amended?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 716 clarifies that the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act is the sole governing authority on landlord-tenant relations in counties where it applies. And I'll answer any questions.
All righty, we appreciate that explanation. Any questions? Representative Towns?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the bill as well. Help me to understand, does that translate to that the cities, so your city, your mayor, your city council will not have any sway over it? Is that what that says?
Representative Hurt?
That is correct, that the law of the land basically for this situation is the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act, which is in effect now for county 75,000 and above.
Okay.
Representative Towns, you have a follow-up?
I do, sir. Hypothetically, but it does occur. So if you're in your neck of the woods, if there is some development that the city and the council deems necessary to be done, and the association that we're talking about is in conflict, who's gonna win today?
Representative Hurt?
In this situation, the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act would take precedence in the relationship between the landlords and the tenants.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Representative Towns?
I'm trying to drill down to figure out if there is something, landlords and tenants is one thing, but if the city sees that they need to do something that's going to be progressive and productive for the whole, the landlord and tenant, what it seems is it will have the ability to stop that. And the problem becomes this, I don't know, people have not elected those folks, landlord, tenant. And it may be something good that brings jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not really adept at this, but I'm thinking on the fly whether or not there would be where the balance should be in terms of who holds the ultimate power. And I'm all for, obviously, for property rights and people being able to maintain their property, but sometimes the city comes in and they say, well, we need this. And they'll do it. Sometimes I think they're wrong with eminent domain and all that other stuff, but it seems like this will stop it. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but if legal can give me an opinion on it, I'd be grateful, but that's, that may be counterproductive for us if it's something that's going to cause us to possibly lose jobs, et cetera. That's giving me a little bit of concern there, a little heartburn there.
Representative Hurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the concern, but the way I understand it, and again, the way I understand it is this is the relationship between the landlords and the tenants and how that would affect as far as development or with the city council and getting into that side of things. I am unaware of how that would be affected through the Residential Landlord Tenant Act, sir.
And if I could do a little follow-up on that, if y'all would indulge
Please.
me. Representative Towns, what this act does is it establishes the baseline between almost like a standard set of conditions for an agreement, private agreement between tenants and landlords. And so it's almost from a contractual standpoint, terms of their leases and that type of stuff that refers back to this. So I think we're cool on the fact that it shouldn't necessarily get into the areas that you're concerned about, which would be limiting growth, stopping city councils or whatever from zoning, those type of things. Right. This is strictly limited to that relationship between these two parties with regards to this. But I tend to err on this. I appreciate the caution flag you throw up there. So, but that's my understanding of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of passing House Bill 716 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Representative Hurt, you're off the calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Number 5 on our calendar will be rolled 1 week at the request of the sponsor.
You want to roll mine too?
We'll get- There's always, never, let's. All right, thank you, sir. I believe that motion was withdrawn. All right, House Bill 0855 by Chairman Powers. Chairman Powers, welcome. We have a motion and a second, so we are properly in front of us. Tell us about 855. This is an interesting piece of legislation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 855 is the Tennessee Business Fairness Act brought to me by the NFIB. We've learned a lot over the past year about the guidelines regarding public health, whether an essential or non-essential business, and a lot more. We've also learned that small business in certain industries were impacted more than others. And we also think that government shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers. We've seen a lot of big box retailers stay open, while small retailers operated at 50% capacity or had to close altogether. One example is there was a toy mart here called Phillips Toy Mart in Nashville, and they had to shut down while people were going down the street and buying toys at Target and Walmart. So this legislation seeks to provide Tennessee businesses with the assurance that they, one, cannot be forced to close while larger competitors stay open. And number two, they can follow any set of guidelines, state or local, so they have the option and operate at a capacity that works best for them while protecting their customers and employees. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions the committee may have.
All righty. Do we have any questions for Chairman Powers? We got a motion, where we already, we'll consider that a calling the question. I got you. I got you. All those in favor of House Bill 855, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none. 855 is off the calendar and rules. Thank you, Chairman Powers.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, committee.
At this point, I will pass my beloved gavel to our worthy Vice Chairman, Brickens.
All right, turn on the mic. All right, we're in session and we're on House Bill number 5 by Chairman Vaughn. Or number 7, I'm sorry. 1039. All right, we got a proper motion and a second.
Thank you, and thank you, members. This is a bill that we are working on. This is a long-term, long-haul project that it has to start somewhere, and it's starting here today. The purpose of this bill is to rebuild the Unemployment Trust Fund. As many of you know, the pandemic, it uncovered a lot of things that we see, that some good, some bad. And in this case, our Unemployment Trust Fund was already rated. This is the way my simple brain thinks of it. U.S. Department of Labor had done a study on unemployment trust funds in February of 2020, and we were already in yellow. As a matter of fact, they deemed us to be the 31st most liquid trust fund in the country. And so for me, I'm used to rankings of 5 to 1. And whenever we were already ranked 31st in this field before we ever got started with the pandemic, it leads me to believe that we need some reform. And as a result of that, what we propose today is we're going to do something with our unemployment trust fund, which is called indexing. And what indexing is indexing is going to, the thought is when unemployment shrinks or drops to below 5.5%, your benefits are at a 12-week period as opposed to automatically qualifying for 26 weeks. As unemployment increases for every 0.5%, we see an extension of a benefit week on the end of it. And so as opposed to people being guaranteed 26 weeks of unemployment, regardless of the economic conditions we're in, we're looking at trimming this to where we begin with 12 weeks during good times. And as times get tougher, it extends up to 20 weeks. Now then, the same part of this is that we're increasing these benefits at the same time. We're going to be adding a $50 increment or additional payment each week so that the funds, you have more when you're looking for a job, but you're more inclined to get out and seek the job. But I want to point something out about this. This isn't a waste, fraud, or abuse. It's not a sociology experiment or anything. What this is math. Is that under our current system, our trust fund was not in the shape that it needed to be, and this is looking at an attempt to bolster this. What this amendment does, 5608, which is what's in front of you, and it will make the bill, is this gets the unemployment office started down the track of developing the RFIs, the RFPs, the softwares needed to convert this system. So what we're doing is we're giving them instruction to begin this process, and we're expecting it to be completed by December 1st of 2023. So that's what this amendment and what this bill says. This is a significant piece of legislation. It is one that we will continue to evolve in the process as we work towards implementation of it, but we've got to start somewhere, and today is that starting point. And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to interrupt you when you're on a roll like that, but we did need a motion and a second on your amendment that you just so aptly described. So,
Thanks.
all right, we have a question on the amendment to get on the bill. See no objections, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. The amendment passes. It's now on the bill. Now, all right.
Oh, you got to bang the gavel. Hey, Roger, drop the gavel.
Okay. All right. Now we have questions on the bill as amended. All right. Representative Hodges?
Yep. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of my biggest concerns on this is, we're going to cut it down to 12 weeks in good times, but not all industries may be in good times during good times. I mean, different industries may lay off at different times. So, we may have low unemployment, and then some telecommunications groups have to lay off large groups of people, or whatever industry, construction industry may be going through a rough patch. And so we're going to cut these people to 12 weeks. In their industries, not in good times. It may take them quite a bit longer to get a job, so I've just got real problems, especially after seeing people laid off for a long period of time during a pandemic, to talk about even cutting unemployment. I'd much rather talk about constituents that still haven't gotten their unemployment because of how bad of a job our state's done at getting unemployment checks to people. So, I'm going to be voting no on this just because I really think we need to think this through, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. I think we have next, any response, sponsor?
Well, I do have that, and I would respond to my friend from Montgomery County in this way, is that what's worse than having 12 weeks of unemployment is not having any unemployment at all. And what we're looking at rebuilding the fund, when you look at some of the states around us, Kentucky had to borrow $500 million from the federal government and are having to repay that. We were fortunate that the CARES Act money came through, or we would be in really rough shape. And when I bring that up is, I don't know about you. I don't know how many people on this committee have ever had to rely on unemployment. I have. I wanted something to be there. And so that's what we're talking about, is building a sustainable fund balance, and changes have to be made along the process. We think that I believe that this is a good combination of additional benefits on the short term, because there is, and again, this is not because of a sociological issue, but that people do, with a shorter scope of benefits, tend to seek employment more aggressively. And so that's what we're trying to do here. But I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. We next have Representative Powell. You recognize?
Thank you, Ms. Sponsor. On the, Chairman, on the amendment, there's different amounts that are included. It's a pretty lengthy amendment, if I'm looking at the right one. And you mentioned indexing. My question is, are those amounts, how do those relate to the current amounts that presently exist? And then, is the indexing, can you talk a little bit more about the indexing?
Yes, sir. What we would be doing, basically the benefit has a maximum today of $275 a week. We would be proposing elevating that to $325 a week. So it'd be almost 20% increase in benefits. But what happens though, with regards to indexing, hold on, let me give you, here it is. The department will determine the state average unemployment rate biannually. So we're going to index it twice a year. Initially, we had proposed monthly, and that, quite frankly, was too cumbersome. Plus, at the same time, it reacted too much to immediate market fluctuations. So we think the every 6-month category would be, or rate would be better. And then the rate must be equal to the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate as published by the U.S. Department of Labor.
Okay. My other question is there anything in there? I mean, there's been a lot of, I know from working with my constituents, a lot of confusion. And how does the department plan on explaining this to the general public, or, because it's pretty complex. I mean, I looked at the amendment, it's lengthy, and the rates and the tables and all that, but is there going to be some sort of a way that they can go on the website and there will be a calculator or anything, or I don't know. I know that's not necessarily part of the amendment, but has that been thought of, the way that's drawn out?
Sponsor?
Yes, sir. And one of the reasons why we have this implementation drawn out from over 2.5 years is to prepare, to give the department time to prepare from everything from a messaging situation to also vendor selection. So we believe that this 2.5-year period to make this transition is a reasonable amount of time to not only for the department to make that, but for the public to also be aware. And just so y'all think this isn't Representative Vaughn going crazy up here, we've seen that we have examples of this that has occurred in other states in the Southeast, which has done the job of doing increasing the math and increasing the fund balance to where they're in a much more stable position today than they were before they indexed their unemployment benefits. And so this is a situation to where we aren't the lead dog on this one, but we do think it's a worthy pursuit.
Another question by Representative Powell.
One last question. If federal dollars, say you hit the 8 weeks, but there's still, God willing, God forbid we ever have another situation like we've gone through the last year. But if we did, and more federal dollars came in for unemployment for a future, say you have another pandemic in say 5 years, would this in any way preclude those federal dollars from still coming in that they might be eligible for? Or would, if more money came directly to the states, would there be some flexibility built in for reconsidering, extending beyond those 8 weeks?
Well, our department does distribute the federal benefits, but they do distribute them according to the federal guidelines. This doesn't contemplate that. So it would be however the feds directed us to spend that money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. We have next Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got just a few things. One, I have been on unemployment twice in my working career. First time I had pretty good experience, good education and everything, but I ended up being on there for 26 full weeks. Despite hundreds of resumes, 65 interviews, lots and lots of networking. At that time, that particular time, unemployment nationally and in the state was relatively low, but there was a lot of people in my profession and lots of MBAs cranking out of universities in my area. And so, yeah, I'm well aware of the need to have a sound unemployment trust fund, but also the needs of people out there actually having to get by on this. Incidentally, the second time I was on unemployment for 2 weeks, so, things change. I understand the need for to have a healthy trust fund. In fact, when I was a freshman, we had a presentation on that. And I was questioning it at that point. I knew how it seemed like we were inadequately funded even at that point when we were seemingly in pretty good shape. But it always seems like every time we have something like this, whether it helps something like the trust fund or it helps business or something, it always is the solution is always on the backs of working people. We're it's almost like we say, well, if we have a solution, we'll just do something bad for working people and it'll help all of us out in the long run. Well, that's what this does. It hurts working people. And I think there should be, and to my knowledge, not one right now, a study that would possibly find other solutions for building the trust fund instead of making us, in fact, looking at other states that have had made changes to their unemployment compensation. We seem to be, if not one of the worst, not the worst, then one of the worst of all the states that have done this. We've reduced, by this proposal, we're reducing our hours down to the very minimum, giving a small pittance of $50 a week. In addition to that, which, and this, again, this just is a really awful deal for average working people. There are potentially lots of social problems that will come from this. There will be people losing their health insurance. There will be people who potentially crime turning to criminal activities as a result of their unemployment running out and not having a job. And to my knowledge, none of this has ever been looked at. None of it has been studied. And we should do all this before we proceed to pass a bill like this. Thank you.
The sponsor would like to respond.
Certainly, and thank you, Representative Thompson, for your comments. We are studying this, and the results that we found to this point, the Boyd Center, UT ran this. In 2017, if we had these changes to the system, we would have seen a difference. We'd have seen the fund balance increase by 31 million. 2018, it would have increased by 62.5 million. By 2019, it would have increased an additional 86.1 million. And in 2020, it would have improved our balance by $237 million. So again, these are putting dollars back in that we don't have to, the taxes to repay the interest and the loans back to the federal government that are borne by working people. This provides a trust fund that's in place for them. The other thing that I think that kind of the other side of this coin that this legislation does not contemplate is the waste, fraud, and abuse that we see prevalent in the system today. Those are other areas that need to be worked on. But again, this is not dealing with those issues. This is dealing with the financial math that it takes to keep our trust fund stable, so that it'll be there for working people in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. I have next Representative Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman, I appreciate you bringing this legislation. While I personally have never been on unemployment in the late 80s, my dad was. He lost his job, and as he was starting a business, we were on unemployment. So I can empathize with those who've had their lights cut off, struggling for food, because I lived that in my early teen years. But I also know that unemployment is a bridge. So it's important to understand this is not a lifestyle. This is a bridge to the next opportunity. And if there is ever a time, Mr. Chairman, to address that in the state of Tennessee, it is when we have 240,000 jobs available at jobsfortn.gov. Last week, the unemployment continued claims were roughly 45,000 people. Mr. Chairman, we have 240,000 plus jobs available at Jobs for Tennessee. And these are not just hourly jobs. These are incredible career opportunities. So if there's ever a time to do what Washington, D.C. refuses to do, they continue to leverage the future of our great-grandchildren. We're going to address an issue now that we see a problem pending. We're going to address that now at a time when Tennessee is able to do it, when there's many opportunities for Tennesseans. So I appreciate you bringing the legislation. I fully support it.
Thank you. Sponsors, any response? No. Representative Powell?
Question on the bill.
We got the question called. We have objection, so we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The question's been called. There a motion on the bill? Yeah, we're voting on the bill. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Bill passes. It goes to Finance Sub. Just a point of order. If you want to be recorded as a no, please let the clerk know. All right, we're on item 8 of the calendar. It's House Bill 649 by Chairman Vaughn.
Motion on the bill. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you.
The bill does have an amendment, so
Motion on the amendment. Second.
I have a motion and a second on the amendment. It's amendment number 5256. So would the sponsor like to address the amendment?
Yes, sir, I would. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I'd like to kind of explain to you the backstory on this bill and what I've learned from it and kind of how I think we need to move forward with it. This bill was brought to a freshman legislator who brought it to us, and I started looking at it, and the core parts of the bill had to do with distressed utility districts and how distressed utility districts who are not they're not financially solvent or whatever the case may be, how they could force how they would merge with other utility districts. The only thing that was contemplated, there even was in there language about how Chancery Court would be used to cause this unhappy marriage of these public utility districts. And so I started looking at it and said, wow, if that's the case, wouldn't we look at every available option for these utility districts and their ratepayers? So that being the case, I amended the bill to include out not just all of the areas contemplated between these different public entities, but also giving investor-owned utilities the opportunity, the board of directors of the struggling utility district to consider divesting themselves with the investor-owned utility. Well, the consequences of that were that suddenly the Senate sponsor took the bill off notice, and we received word back. And so I told our freshman counterpart that this, obviously, my amendment was about to cause stress for him. So I signed on as a co-sponsor and took the bill over. So just to be correct in chronological order, following that, then the Senate sponsor has taken the bill off notice. And so it's obvious that public utility districts don't want to have anything to do with investor-owned utility district. That's one thing that I've seen about that. But during this conversation that we've had about these, I've heard things like that these are good, hardworking people and they served a valuable need in establishment, and that's all good. But I've never heard the term ratepayer. What's best for the ratepayer? I've heard what's best for the districts. I've heard what's best for the utilities, but never what's best for the ratepayer. And so as a result of this, with us being off notice in the Senate, I'm going to take this one off notice. But what it's done is it's caused me to pause and reflect. And so what I'm going to be asking my Commerce sub-chairman to work with me on this is this year's been a year of us taking care of last year's business and pandemic business. But moving forward, we're going to take a deep dive into how public utilities are regulated in the state of Tennessee. I think that it's going to be important. I think it's good for our membership to learn how they're regulated, how the chronological order of the laws that have been brought forward through time. Are those purposes the same purposes as of today? And it's not just the water districts. It has also to do with electric districts, because I had some questions last year with regards to ours, and I was surprised in the fact that you really didn't have it. The ratepayer had nobody to appeal to, because back then they said basically TVA was the overarching regulator. And so as a result of this, and now you're seeing utilities wanting to leave TVA. How does all this work? What's the ratepayer's remedy in any of this? So this summer, we're going to be opening up the books and trying to look at it and figure it out and see if we can come up with a system that would improve things for the ratepayers of the state of Tennessee. And with that, sir, I'd like to take House Bill 649 off notice.
House Bill 649 is taken off notice.
Thanks for driving, Chairman Brickens. If there any other business to come before our committee today? Seeing none, we are adjourned.